a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this, my second channel, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate pre-show and after-show goodness. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below the video. Now, we're currently joined by Anthony. Let's see if I can get his attention. Hello, can you hear me?
Yo, man.
How's it going?
So. Yeah. Did you hear what happened yesterday with Nora?
Yeah, I was listening to the whole show. I was in the chat. You saw me.
No, that's not the full story. Yeah, that's half. That's the second half. There was a first half.
Okay, what was the first half?
All right, so Roxanne added me to a group chat on Facebook called Activism, basically because I'm going down Speaker's Corner, and that's for a badge to say you're in. If you're coming down Speaker's Corner, you're in this group. So she added me, right? I'm fine with that. You know, I know some of the people, but I don't know most of them. I recognize Robin and I recognize Jason of the Didsbury family, but other than that, I don't know anybody else, right? Don't know why, just don't. But they're all in the clique with Roxanne. Now I was in there for maybe 4 days. And then Jason of the Didsbury family added Nora. And I said, everybody said, hi, Nora, welcome to the group. Hi, Nora, hi, Nora. And I just says, hello, Naughty. And she said, hello, Anthony. And then that was it. And then I was in two minds whether or not I should say anything about this conflict that she has that is going to cause a problem. Because I don't want to piss her off and I don't want to seem like an aggressor. But on the other hand, in an activism group with Nora that's on the streets, basically preaching gravity the way she describes it as this like orientation of a generalized up and down or a universal up and down, basically it's going to cause an issue. So I basically said, right, guys, I've got an issue with Nora. This is the issue. This is why it's an issue. It needs to be addressed because you can't have her side by side with you and then start spouting gravity or whatever. Because someone will come up to you and say, she's just said that there is a downwards acceleration force or whatever. And she terms it as there is a generalized up and down or something of that nature and an ordering. Anyway, a massive row erupted and everybody was watching because you can see on the group chats on Facebook, if there's like 12 icons, that means 12 people are actually watching the comments. Prior to Nora joining, there was like one, maybe two. Now there's like 12. Me and Nora are having a back and forth and they're all watching it. And basically, Nora leaves. But at the point Nora leaves, I said to her, please, for God's sake, just look at this point because it debunks what you're saying. And she left and she never actually seen the message before she went. Anyway, I apologized to everybody in the group chat. And I said, look, at the end of the day, if she's on the streets with you and she starts talking about this thing the way she describes it, aside from it being mumbo jumbo, it's going to compromise everything that the group that you're out there with is going to be standing for because she's peddling against the stream. Now, she's entitled to her views, but she preaches them as true. And that's where there's a line that's being crossed. Now, one of the things that Nora had said in this chat was that Bob from Globebusters had said that we should not talk about it. But Bob said it in the context of the public chat on Globebusters. He didn't say not talk about it ever. And I'm not going to not talk about it just because she thinks that Bob says that we shouldn't and therefore we shouldn't. Because I don't agree with her. So anyway, she fucked off. I explained to the group what had gone on, and I asked people to say whether or not, if they didn't agree or whatever, did they have any evidence that supported what Nora was saying? And there was silence. And basically, I'd only been there 3 or 4 days, but no one had said a fucking word to me. But in the background, she's been talking to Jason of the Didsbury family because that's who brought her in. Now, she then got involved with Arwin and had a massive row with Arwin on the same point, which is unusual because normally Arwin and Nora are on the same side on this, but for whatever reason, there was a fallout. I don't know exactly what it was.
I've said already, Arwin's conceded these points, but he's not stupid enough to just drop it completely and make it seem like he's been completely defeated by your very cogent and coherent argument. So instead, he's let it peter out, which is very wise. But ultimately speaking, he is on your side now. He's conceded all the points you've raised with him, and he's assessed them logically and then conceded.
Just don't poke the bear with Arwin, right?
Well, it's not that you don't need to poke the bear. It's just that he's slowly letting it fade away rather than just dropping it like a lead balloon. Because if he drops it like a lead balloon, people will be all over him, right? Oh, you got smashed over this. And instead of that, he's just let it peter out and then, you know, gets a little bit annoyed when you poke the bear, like you say. But with Nora, it's a different story. You know, she either hasn't listened to the points, which it certainly seems like it when I was listening of what I could hear. You know, I sent her a mic and headphones. Just like, it's bought me for a load of frames. I'm like, oh, right, that's why I went to the effort of posting them to you, is it? Okay. The whole point was because she's got a lot to say. I want to hear her say it. So it's like, I want to hear what you're saying, Nora. So I sent her out some headphones about a year ago, and for a couple of shows she wore them, and you could hear what she was saying.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not a techie, I'm an artist or something like that. I'm like, it's not being a techie, just sticking headphones on so you can actually hear what you're saying rather than the shit laptop mic that doesn't work.
Right, well, get this. This is where it gets freaky, right? Because she had the hangout with Travis, which you and I both heard of. I heard most of it, but you obviously heard all of it. But she expressly told Travis not to let me in, right? This is after she's left the group hangout and after she's had the back and forth with Arwin, but she's now trying to stop me from basically opposing her view. Now, that to me tells me that either it's not personal with Nora, as far as I can tell. She's not personally against me, and I'm not personally against her. She's been to the caravan. She spent the weekend with me. She was fine, apart from this one issue. We rowed about it on the way down from the train station down to the caravan. And we rowed again at night time. Lee came out and said, "Shut up, you dickheads. I'm trying to sleep." So we were rowing over it, and we didn't get closure on it. But basically, by stopping me from going in the hangout with Travis, what's her intention? Is her intention to try and push this narrative at all costs? Or is she just stupid and doesn't listen and doesn't realize that her point is countered with evidence to the contrary for what this so-called up and down is? And I don't know if you remember me saying, but miscible and immiscible liquids and gases.
Just to give you so it's one step removed from you and Nora. If for the sake of argument, right, Roxanne, she has a load of azimuthal equidistant projections behind her on her stand, right? If I went into the group and started demanding that she conceded my point that that's just bollocks handed to you by the elites to create a straw man representation of a flat earth that's based on a global projection. It's not my model, it's not plenty of people I know's model, but you're putting it out there like that's what flat earthers think. And if I took that stance with Roxanne, what would your reaction be?
Well, that's not the stance I'm taking with Nora.
I know. It's a different complete. I've deliberately made it me and someone else rather than you and Nora, and I've made it a different point intentionally, so that you can. So it's nothing to do with your point. That's intentional, just so you can assess that, devoid of any bias towards your point and whether or not it's right. But my point about the azimuthal, which I'm sure I could get support for. People agree with me. If I attacked Roxanne on that premise, what would your reaction be?
See what Roxanne says back. Calculate up who's got the stronger arguments and then pick a side based on the evidence presented. I wouldn't side with you or Roxanne because it's you or Roxanne. I would see who's got the better evidence and basically formulate my opinion based on evidence. Okay.
Wouldn't you say that if I took a slightly more harsh tact, if she wasn't pursued her, you know what I mean? If she wouldn't agree and I pursued her over it, how would you feel then?
But is this on the basis that she's presented evidence to support her opinion or not?
She's presented an AE map. That's good enough. That's why I picked it. She's got an AE map up. That's good enough. That right. Qualifies.
And I would say that that's not good enough evidence, and if that's the only evidence, then that's not strong enough to win the point. And I would agree with you.
Okay. Well, that answers my question, because my question wasn't really about that. It was more about whether or not you viewed it from a personal perspective or from an evidential basis. And clearly, it's from an evidential basis. So, yeah, keep banging that drum. It's nothing personal, you know. You've got your reasons.
Do you know what the bizarre thing is? I actually said to Roxanne about a week before this happened, maybe a week ago. I said, listen, there's a bit of an issue with Nora. I said, if Nora ever gets added to this group, just be aware that there's a conflict. And about a week later, about a week, mate, I think I've been in the group for 5 days, 5 days maybe. And I'd said to her at that point, I said, if she ever gets added,
quick, get the live stream screenshotted. Nick, quote, "It might be flat. I just like trolling. Sorry.
I don't see Nick's comments, do I?
Okay. Well, quote, it might be flat, comma, I just like trolling, sorry. Full stop.
Yeah, that's why I got him blocked.
Yeah, what a cock.
This is a video
About 5 minutes if you want to get a coffee.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and grab myself a Coke. Raven Song says, Nathan's rage is justified, and you fuckers deserve it.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be back in a sec.
No worries. Hopefully everyone else will pile in a minute.
I want to know what the disagreement was with Arwin and Nora, because they've had a massive fallout over it. Whatever it is.
Have you still you've still got her on Skype though, right?
Nora, let's have a look.
You must have.
Yeah,
you
chatted,
block. You can't
chatted
block
2 months ago. No, I haven't blocked her.
Send her the link.
Right, I'm gonna do. I've challenged her to come in today.
Don't challenge her. Just say come and have a natter.
Get your ass in here, bitch.
No. Get your ass in here, bitch. Nora's a fairly meek and mild woman. You realise that, right?
Listen, I've got nothing personal against her. I love the girl. She's lovely, and honestly, I've got not a bad word about her, other than this gravity point.
Wow.
Of which, of course, I'd like to stab her.
She also smells a bit funny.
Huh?
I'm just joking.
What did you say?
I said she smells a bit funny.
Yeah. Webbed feet.
If you're watching this, Nora, you don't smell. You smell beautiful. All that nonsense. Not that I know. I've got a really heavy cold.
I've messaged her. She's online. Let's see if she sees it and joins. I bet she doesn't know.
I bet she'll say something along the lines of, I don't want to be attacked by you, blah, 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 blah.
Do you know what she's doing, though? She's claiming that I'm misrepresenting her position, right? And she's also claiming that the counter position is simply density and buoyancy, right? Well, I know what her position is. She believes that there's a universal up and down and it's a force that causes it. That doesn't mean that she can tell people that I don't know what her position is. Or it doesn't mean that she can tell people that I'm misrepresenting her position. I'm not. She's describing gravity, but describing it in a way that's unique to her, right? It's a different form. It's redefining gravity. The other thing that she says is that that I'm Yeah, she doesn't describe the counter argument against her point correct. She deliberately misses off the word relative at the beginning.
Yeah, she
And
adds
she's been told
buoyancy. That's what they do. So buoyancy is a nice globehead term. And if you're talking about one thing in one medium, i.e. if you miss out the relative bit, then you can have an up and down in her explanation when she misrepresents what you say. Well, that's, in my opinion, the only bit that I took umbrage with was that. It's like, stop saying density and buoyancy. That's a globehead description. Relative density, it's all down to the medium it's in and the item that you're comparing it to. So if you just keep saying density and buoyancy, it's like, well, you might as well just tie that straight into gravity in the globehead senses of the word. Hi, Arwen. 1 minute and we're starting.
The question is that an intentional thing, though?
No, she just wants to justify her position. Cognition's a weird thing. You know, most of these people that you call liars aren't liars in the strictest sense of the word. You know, the fact that they're convincing themselves.
I don't believe she's stupid or lacking capacity or intelligence on this point. I believe that she absolutely understands it.
Don't dispute that.
Arwen, are you there?
You've still got to justify her position.
Morning, guys. Morning.
Hey, Chocolate.
Hey, Chocolate.
What's up?
Chocolate, you do have the best avatar in Flat Earth. You realise that, right?
That is awesome to hear.
It looks like a cross between Guile out of Street Fighter 2 from the late 80s, early 90s, and some kind of Japanese anime thing.
Fireball Z.
Well, that's what it is. It is Japanese anime. It's from Dragon Ball.
Was I right with the name?
Pardon?
Huh?
Fireball Z.
Yeah. Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball. See, I almost sounded like I knew what I was talking about for a second.
Arwen, in a sentence, Arwen, what was the disagreement with Nora about? What point?
Oh, God.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live. There's also a PayPal and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Chocolate Sane, Arwen and Sleeping Warrior. Good to have you all.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
So, just before the show started, Arwen was going to give an explanation regards something quite strange, and that's the disagreement on Arwinian gravity between you and Nora, and I didn't get to hear it because I had to start the show. Any chance you can repeat it?
Oh, dear God.
That's what you said. That's the bit I got. Dear God. Oh, God. Dear God. And then I started the show.
Look, it's what's basically happening, what it feels like to me. Like Nora's getting completely drowned in this kind of structural exploration of potentiality, what could be possible, blah. And she just is in the same position where I was before I basically laid down gravity and just declared it an aberration, which it is at this point, and I don't see any viable routes I can pursue to start to prove it. And it seems like she's just not giving it up, and she's now saying like, yeah, but I'm not trying to prove it, I am just trying to establish an axiom, like a philosophical principle, basically, of logic, and that should replace it.
Hey, Adam.
And it's all really nice and dandy, but it's just, it's not going to prove gravity.
The thing is, we don't even need this argument within this discussion. It's not, gravity is not a requirement for our. In fact, we say that it doesn't even exist. But the ballers absolutely need gravity, because otherwise they haven't got an explanation for how the atmosphere sticks to the ball and doesn't get sucked off into space by the vacuum. They need gravity.
No.
So it's like, why would you even if you did want there to be this thing that she's got, this little crusade that she's on, why would you even argue it like publicly?
Hold on, Riley. That's not the gravity. She's only arguing for the downward acceleration force. She's not an idiot. She's not a Cavendish or. Absolutely not.
The way she describes it is a universal up and down, and that a force forces this. And what is that force? Well, there is no universal up and down.
Now, what she's declaring is that because there is motion, there must be a force. And I asked her to show me the quote, an official quote, and she didn't. She just said, "No, this is just what." Yeah, that's Newton's first people accept among my circles.
Owen,
basically put a peer pressure card out.
Owen, that's Newton's first law of motion, isn't it? An object at rest will remain at rest unless a force is acted upon it. So she's right in that context, but I take issue with that because we can manipulate density and make movement. We can literally cause something to move by manipulating that little bit of density, and that egg will move. So that's my whole point.
I said exactly that, and she hated me for it. But I told her, look, that's I kind of dislike it as well, but it is just a solid scientific theory like this.
Well, the thing
is, she refuses to accept this.
The thing is, she applies that first principle of Newton's laws on motion, right? But then she ignores the second one, which states that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So for every time she describes something going down, she doesn't tell you that there's an equal and opposite reaction with something else going back up. So what she describes there is basically like a balancing of nature. But she doesn't tell you that things are always... She says that things predictably go down. Well, no, they don't predictably go down because it depends on where you are. I can't understand how she can maintain a position and actually argue for it. It's one thing to like spitball and say, well, I think maybe it could. And that's fine. Everybody, I mean, once you realize it's not a ball, literally anything goes. And that does include gravity. You can have the discussion. But where she crosses the line is where she preaches it as though she's like the reverend. And I disagree with that because it's not got any evidence to support it. And even though Bob from Globebusters may have a persuasion in her favor, he admits that it can't be proven. Not the way she's describing it. So if it can't be proven and there isn't evidence that proves it or even supports it, why are you preaching it? Sure, spitball by all means, we all do it, but that don't make it like credible to argue that it's true. You need to have evidence, Nora. Come on.
Okay.
Well said.
I was just going to draw a line under that there. Then Adam normally joins because he's got something very specific to say. Hopefully that's the case in this instance. How are you doing, Adam?
No, it's just...
No!
I'd got the afternoon off. And I was just trying to get my shed sorted whilst Owen was on, and I'm sorted, so I thought I'd pop in. I'd add one bit to the gravity thing. The only thing I would say is I chatted with Quantum about it, and I'm not as definitive in the no up and down as you guys are, but irrespective of that kind of way of quantifying vectors, the thing for me is, as I had it beat into me, it's one of those things that's kind of like a law of nature thing. It's not something science is necessarily going to be able to solve, even though we're trying to. It might just be that is the way things are, and we can't put any causality to it.
Yeah, it's like when you have pressure, right? If you have a tire and you burst the tire, what's the force that pushes that pressure out? There isn't a force; it's the pressure itself, isn't it? But the pressure always goes from pressure to non-pressure by virtue of that. That's just the way it is. It doesn't go the other way, and it's always the same. It's pressure to non-pressure. Same with temperature. Hot always goes to cold. So it's like, why is it with regards to this downwards perception thing that you're describing? Why can't you accept that it's just the way it is by virtue of the density, and we can manipulate it and show that is the cause? It's like you don't have to fight for like the temperature inversion. It's entropy, basically. You wouldn't argue against entropy. You just accept that that's the way it is. Well, why is it any different? We have the density that is greater than the other density that displaces. But I'll tell you where it gets really interesting with Nora. Nathan, just present my screen for me, please, if you would. My favorite picture. And I realized that not everybody within Flat Earth realizes this. So this is absolutely worth talking about, because if you realize this point, it all makes sense. So we've got my favorite picture in the whole wide world ever. It fixes everything, right? These liquids, forget the solids, the liquids that are on screen right now, they've all got one common property in hand. And the property is called miscibility or miscibility, depends on whether you pronounce the C or not in the middle, but miscibility of liquids.
Don't pronounce it. It's miscibility.
Miscibility. Yeah, okay. So they've all got this attribute to their dynamics, which doesn't allow them to mix. Now, by virtue of that dynamic called miscibility, right, it forms the layer between the two. If it's not miscible, it's immiscible. So if it's immiscible, this is what we're looking at. But if it's miscible, they will mix together. Now, if you have 2 liquids, 3 liquids, 6 liquids, and they're all miscible, then it means that they will all mix together and form as one. It'll end up being one compound, one liquid that's got everything in it. So there'll be no separation. But because there is that separation with some liquids, that's where she perceives this like upwards and downwards perception. But it's not. It's by virtue of that miscibility, and it's because of the density that separates it, right? Now, that ultimately, the fact that that miscibility exists means that when it's not immiscible, that immiscibility exists when it's not immiscible and they do mix together, you don't have that perception of up and down anymore. So it's only because of that property. But that doesn't mean that there's a force that's doing it. It just means that these things don't mix together, and that's why you perceive that there is an up and a down. It's not. It's just the inability for these things to mix together. That's all it is. Right, I'm done now.
No, it's only the perception of up and down in relation to the relative density concept.
Absolutely.
We do,
Correct.
just to keep that clear.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, and
well,
all of these liquids are all in the same medium. They're all in air. So that's why it's relative to that medium that they're in, because all of these things are more dense than the air that they're in. And I'll give you a really good example, right? Get in the bath, have your bath, and then by the time you've finished your bath, don't get out the bath and empty it. Empty the bath whilst you're in it. And your mass is relative to the water that you're in. But when the water's draining out the bath whilst you're in it, you can feel what you perceive is your gravity pulling down on you a lot more as the water drains off you. You can feel you gaining weight. Now, obviously, it's because you're now changing from the water, which is like 1,000 times more dense than the air, and you float almost in that water. But when you take the water out and the water's draining away, you're moving from that water into air and you feel heavier. But obviously, it's relative to the medium that you're in. That's the best way I can describe it. If you have a bath, drain the water, and you don't feel it, then honest to God, you need to go back to sleep, because you'd be better off with the blue pill.
No, it makes perfect sense, Riley, because the air has a much lower relative density compared to your body in comparison to the water with your body.
Yeah.
And thus, the apparent gravity sensation will be larger because the difference is bigger.
So Nora would always say, well, why is it always down? And we can demonstrate that it's not down, it's up, and it also goes sideways. Like in that layered like fluids thing that I just had on screen, it fills the container sideways before it starts going up. So
Hold on, it only goes sideways if it can't go perfectly vertical.
Well, it can't go perfectly vertical, can it?
It can when there's no obstruction.
So you're going to create a stalagmite or a stalactite inside a liquid? I don't think so.
Oh, really? Have you ever seen crystals forming in water?
No, you are right. There are occasions where that does happen, but generally speaking, with fluids, they don't do that, do they? Generally, they fill the container left to right before they go up.
Only if it is uniform.
Sure. But that's what I'm saying. She's got this perception that up and down is a thing, and then it never goes sideways. Well, it does go sideways, and that we can manipulate these things so we know what the cause of them is.
But
and it's like, come on, this is not hard. Look up basic fluid dynamics. It's not difficult.
Hold on, Riley. There is up and down. It's just not relevant to the relative density theory.
There isn't up and down.
That's
Darwin.
great.
Well, there is an up and down for us, relatively speaking, Darwin. For us in our medium. But it's relative to us and our density in our given medium.
Yeah.
Sorry, there is up and down. It's just not relevant to the density.
All right. So what evidence have you got of this up and down?
I see it because it's there.
Where is it then? We can't
Well
see
done.
it.
Well said.
Yeah,
Are
you
you going to
can.
wiggle
You
out of that
turn
one,
your head up,
Anthony?
you see up, and you turn your head down, and you see down.
It's relative to us, though, Arwin. To a plane, what we're looking up to the plane is horizontal,
Yeah, well,
right?
that's the only way I can observe it. If you're
Yeah, but
gonna
it's relative
say
to
it's
you.
relative, then you're in big trouble.
It's relative to you.
I only talk in vectors, and that way it's much simpler. Because
No.
Well, anyway.
Adam, explain to the audience what you mean. What does a vector mean? What's your vector,
it's
Victor?
a relative movement from a beginning position. Now, I understand why you're trying to get at, because in all logic, there is an up and down as a human being living, and that's the thing. But when we're talking in this, it isn't that relevant. It's about the only thing that kind of is relevant is to what defines the ordering, and that to me is where we get into just laws of nature, and we're just crudely pissing in the wind with just conjecture, trying to quantify it in some way when there really, as far as I can see, is no way of quantifying it. So trying to do so is futile. But I would just talk about a relative starting point is the important thing, and then you can describe it as a vector without having to get into that, because what is up and down?
It's relative.
Yeah, sort of. But because we don't know what we're living on, we can't then define relative in relation to that as well. So, but I think people try to.
Well, you can have you can create your own relative starting vector, right?
Yeah. So to me, it would be whether it has a negative or positive value, and that's definable, and has a relationship to the differential of density. But once again, that really doesn't in any way define why it forces a negative or positive move based on that density differential. I'd say that to me is just one of those laws of nature that is way outside the spectrum of trying to think we could do yet.
I mean, would you agree, Adam, that this is also beautifully summed up by the second law?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Hot to cold, less dense to more dense, high pressure to low pressure.
Yeah, and the reason is it's again it's non-directional. That it's a diffusement in terms of.
Quite right.
I think keeping it simple is the straightforward way, and I think the confusion, and I speak for myself because it's not something you easily grasp, and I wouldn't say I grasp it fully yet, but keeping it simple with the way, and not the complexity that comes when you try to force something in, like gravity, or force something definitive in there to create the causality for it, to give it causality, which necessarily isn't there. And what we tend to do at the moment is attribute similar things to what Newton came up with some kind of gravitational force. I certainly don't think whatever causes that ordering necessarily needs to be a force. Now, in a molecular level, this ordering then causes intermolecular forces, which for me satisfies Newton with regards to why the things move, because forces are being generated. We can't see them, but there is sufficient force there in terms of charge difference for the molecules to realign. So I don't think there's a break there, and I think if anything, that then supports there's even less need for an additional force to cause things. That intermolecular forces are sufficient, and they can be quite strong if given the opportunity, but they can also be contained quite easily when you put something in a vessel which prevents the interaction of molecular forces. If that makes sense.
I think it's also worth pointing out that anything that is suggested without evidence has to be accepted as a story, a possibility, maybe. But unless you can prove that it is true, come on. The whole point of the show.
To move it on, I just seen a thing that Darwin had P. Mars jump in.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it got in there, mate. But
Yeah, it was Dan Winfield. He just
Was it?
admitted to me and apologized. So
I was going to say, if it was the way P first said, which is where you flashed your thing,
yeah, he
on
lied.
Nathan's advice, it's get out of there quick.
Yeah. Shout out retracted.
Mars was all right.
No, he can be okay, but he's too much of a dickhead too many times.
Only when you trigger him.
No, he walks in and it's the first words out of his mouth is usually the N-word for no
But then
reason.
you already triggered him.
You can't claim victim status unless he is actually a victim.
He is a victim of his own mental state.
That is true.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
Yeah, so fuck to use. Sorry about the screen name. Says P. Mars is a great guest, unless he gets triggered.
I'm not so sure I'd agree with that, to be honest, but c'est la vie.
C'est la flatter of debate.
Oh, by the way, he claimed a victory against me, I believe.
P. Mars?
Yeah.
Well,
I went into a hangout with a guy called... I went into a hangout with a bloke, and I've never met either of them before. And I was polite, friendly, affable, you know, didn't know these guys, so was being okay. And he claims to have practiced science, right? We started talking about what science is there for gravity, and he starts talking about gravitational waves. I said, oh yeah. I said, how did he prove that they were gravitational waves? He said, we detected them. I said, really? I said, how can you prove that it wasn't a bumblebee flying by nearby? Oh, well, we can show that it's gravity because we predicted that it was going to happen and it happened. I said, oh, really? I said, so did you manipulate your independent variable in your little experiment that you claim is science? And he said, well, no, but you don't need to. I said, yeah, you do if it's science. I said, if it's not manipulated, we had a big back and forth about whether or not you had to manipulate an independent variable. And basically, he wouldn't accept that you didn't have to. He wouldn't accept that you have to manipulate your independent variable, otherwise it falls outside of science. Anyway, he then found out who I was and then started spouting the triangle thing, which I'm not even going to address because, anyway, it doesn't matter. And basically, in the end, I presented like 3 pieces of evidence before leaving. And he just denied all 3. It was to do with the quantification of the 50 million to 1 by gravity that he reckons he can feel. And when I showed him how much it's supposed to be, he still claims he could feel it and just wouldn't accept the evidence I presented because it was just a story. And P. Mars tried to argue this as well. He wouldn't accept that Einstein's theory of relativity expunges Newtonian principles of gravity because basically he says it changed it and added to it. And I said, no, expunges doesn't mean changed. It means like destroys, removes. And there was a third one he was on about with regards to Ranty and the boats. And if you remember Red Pill Philosophy, when he came in and he showed that tower block where the floors were all squashing as it got towards the horizon, he was trying to claim that Ranty was proving the shape of the sphere of the Earth. And I had to point out to him that actually what he's showing is that there's a vertical compression that's not proportionate to the aspect ratio of the actual picture itself. It adjusts on the vertical axis only, and it squashes more as it gets towards the horizon. And he wouldn't accept that was a possibility. He completely dismissed it. I presented evidence to the contrary. He wouldn't accept it. In the end, I just called him a denier, and I said that you're wasting my time because you are literally denying evidence right in your face that is contrary to your opinion. So when I left, he started saying things like these flat earthers are all the same, blah 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 blah. But basically, if you're having a conversation with someone and he just dismisses and rejects all the evidence that you present that counters his non-presentation of evidence, then you realize that you're just pissing in the wind because there's no point being there. So I left on that basis. But somehow PMARS thinks that there was a victory in there for him. So I wonder what that victory impression might actually be, PMARS. So if you want to join and tell us what you interpreted was the victory in amongst all this gish gallop that you were presenting to try and counter the actual evidence that I was presenting that was completely against your opinions, I'd love to hear it. And by way of concluding this point, the guy said afterwards that he thinks that I might have had a little bit of help. No, mate, I was in that hangout on my own. I was literally debating you with your own evidence, and you just can't counter it, and you call yourself a science guy. So, sorry, mate, you're full of shit.
I was going to say, at the point that you said he just denied that you need to independent variable, it's like, at that point, you're just pissing in the wind, basically. It doesn't suit his narrative, so he's going to deny what you say, like you've just made it up. Nah, sorry, mate.
Yeah, that's his position. Moron. Snake is the better word.
But they're deluding themselves, so it's like, more power to you if you want to kid yourself. Shout out to SX0 for the super chat. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but they're not deluding themselves. They're deluding other people like PMARS that think. I mean, you would be gobsmacked at how many people are claiming that Conspiracy Cats has set traps for me and I've fallen into them. And the reality, of course, is Conspiracy Cats hasn't presented the evidence to prove these claims that he's made. He's called them. He's rebranded this failure a trap. But the reality is he's no better than Miles Davis. Miles Davis couldn't prove where he took his so-called pictures from and claims that they were taken at a certain point. But it's contentious, and he hasn't produced it. He's been asked for it millions of times by loads of different people. And as far as I'm aware, he still hasn't produced this evidence that he relies on to try and prove the point that he's proving. Well, Conspiracy Cats is no better. So if he's... I can't understand how these ballers are telling people shit that no one accepts is true, but they just don't accept that there's missing holes in their evidence. But when we do it, bloody hell, it causes murder.
Well, that's a cognition break for you. You said that nobody accepts is true. Well, lots of people accept it as true, even though it's got holes in it. That's why.
Yeah. It's embarrassing to be a baller. You have got no evidence to support your opinions. But everybody seems to believe there's no evidence. But when we produce not enough evidence to satisfy the point, you guys just simply call it fake, fraud, lies, whatever. No, it doesn't work that way, guys.
It seems to be a very playground mentality, a lot of the internet, man. It's that's the big boys. If we shout loud enough, then it will be true. And it's I don't know. You engage in it, mate. And I think there's certain people that some of the efforts you go to, it might pay off. I don't think any of them are these ballers that are supporting these channels, because they're not interested in actually getting to the truth. They're interested in being fed something to confirm that they're still in a safe place and it's all okay.
I agree.
That's what they're after. They're not, because if they were interested in finding out whether it was true or false, they'd look into it themselves, wouldn't they? They're not interested in that. They just after a pat on the head. It'll all be all right. Don't worry, it's still a ball.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Well, that's why I give them some reassurance, you know. Go in peace, in R you trust. It's all okay. I mean, I was talking to Tim Osman in the chat for the pre-show. I'll plug my own show now, why not? So before this show starts, I replay the show that goes on recording after the live show finishes. So it's about 22 hours later or whatever it is. I forgot my point now because I'm ill. What was I talking about? What the hell was I babbling on about? Tim Osman, that was it. I was in the chat with Tim Osman and pointing out that, you know, you're a religious zealot. You've got this belief in R, and it doesn't matter how dumb a voice you put on while you point out our most devastating point, which is to say that in R you trust. Now, if you're happy with that, if you're happy to believe in R, then good for you, you know. Off you go, you fuzzy little sod. You know, ruffle your hair and send you on your way. Good for you, you believe in it, you stupid bastard. Off you go.
Like praise the Lord, but praise R literally is that way.
That's
I find
exactly
it really.
Sorry, that was the point I was going to make. Sorry, you brought me back on track. Exactly. So join us in praise. Praise be to R. It's so very true. Right? Yeah. If you want to believe in it, great, good for you. Just like the Christians, or just like the Jews, or just like the Muslims, or just like any other religious faith, they've got their belief. Now, at least they admit to it. You globehead zealots half the time don't even realise it, which is hysterical. You believe in R, you defend R. Half the time you'll even tentatively admit the truth, which is that it's a presupposition, because we point it out and bang you around the heads with it repeatedly, so you can't really deny it. But in the face of that, half the time they still don't recognise that they've got a religious belief in this shit.
Yeah, and it's that ignorant. See, half of them are stupid; they don't realise, but the other half of them absolutely know. This is why I like Sly, because Sly presents himself as this kind of guy that, you know, is like a normal Joe Blogs. But I can tell when he sleights of hand, and I realise that the guy is dishonest. He's telling people lies, and he knows that the lies. It's like GeoStreamer. Apparently, GeoStreamer's having a hangout. He invited me to the hangout, and I said, I'll tell you what, I'll join the hangout if you admit that you were being fed by Soundly. And rather than, I mean, I don't know how you would respond to this if you were innocent, right? But what he responded to was, we proved many times that you blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dickhead, no. I know that you know that you were having the hangout, right? I know that you were having the hangout. So it's like you're just literally lying. So I'm not going to entertain anything to do with GeoStreamer because it's not about the truth. He knows that he was doing it, and he won't admit it despite the evidence against him. He's a moron. Dishonest moron.
Hey guys, I got a question for you. Some person in my early bird chat suggested that you can't see England from France. So I was just looking, and
He can.
from
Okay.
Calais to Dover, how far of a distance is that
Not
roughly?
very far, 20 miles.
So has there been footage of this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very common.
Oh,
It's not,
really?
it's not at all
Flat Max UK,
surprising.
isn't
It's
it?
not a very long distance.
All right, thanks for that.
Flatmax UK has shown the ferries that are in Calais terminal pulling out the terminal when they've got the passengers on. Yes, we can see Calais from England. So, PMARS, what was this victory that you've claimed against me?
I'm really nervous.
Yeah, you should be.
guys-
Go on,
you
be
guys are-
specific. What was the victory?
You guys are like celebrities to me.
Yeah? No victory then, no?
I'd rather meet you than Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Oh,
Full
thanks,
of
Pete.
shite, PMARS.
I'll take that, even though you're being sarcastic.
Well, I think that Riley would rather meet you than Brad Pitt would meet you.
I wouldn't be too sure about that, Arwin. Brad Pitt, has
Really?
no knowledge. Brad Pitt has no knowledge of PMARS. He might actually take the chance.
No, do you think he's gonna meet somebody without doing research on them?
So, PMARS, what was the victory? What bit did you claim that you think that you smacked my ass on? Come on.
Come on, Pete. Speak up.
What are you referring to?
I saw your comment in Arwin's chat before. He said that you battered Riley earlier on. He got beat so bad. So what was the point that you think that you beat me on, P? You only brought up one, and it was the interpretation of Cavendish.
In the conversation we had yesterday?
Yeah, in the conversation we had yesterday. You said that I got the Cavendish paper wrong.
That's correct.
Right.
That's
Right, so
correct.
is that the one that you think that is the victory? Let's run it now, P.
I thought you got smashed by everyone yesterday.
No, I didn't get smashed by any of them. They all there was two of you, and you did one thing that I remember. You might have done two, but I don't remember anymore. And the point that you were making was that I'd misinterpreted what it said in the Cavendish experiment about the 50 million to 1. So
Yep.
let's have a little look at it and see where I go wrong with this, and perhaps you can explain it because you didn't explain it the other day.
I did
All right,
explain
so-
it.
So this is the Cavendish experiment, P. Can you see it on screen?
Yep.
What does it say in the top line for what Cavendish was trying to do?
I don't know, you read it.
He was trying to determine the density of the Earth, P.
Okay.
And the contentious point that we had was at the bottom of page 2. At the bottom of page
No. It
Yeah,
wasn't
this is
even
the bit-
really. No.
This is the bit where you said that I've got wrong, and I want to know where I got it wrong because it says as the force with which the balls are attracted by these weights is excessively minute, not more than a 50 millionth of the object's weight, It's plain that a very minute disturbing force will be sufficient to destroy the success of the experiment. And you claim that you've got a victory somewhere, and this is the only point I remember you really making, and you think that I've misinterpreted this?
Yes.
So where's the misinterpretation?
Because you said there's a contradiction between that and the claim that I made, and there wasn't a contradiction.
So what was the contradiction I said?
I don't remember, but that was the argument.
No, what the background was that the other gent said that he could feel gravity, right? He could feel gravity, and I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "How much of your body weight do you think is to do with gravity?" And his answer was all of it. And I said, "That's not what Cavendish says." Cavendish says,
"Yes, it is."
All right, and this is the point. I said that Cavendish states that you can only feel a 50 millionth, and that's attributable to gravity. The rest of it's to do with density. And you said that I've got this wrong.
Yeah, you're misinterpreting that.
Right, so where's the misinterpretation, P?
So when it's talking about their weight, okay. Do you know weight is the attractive force between you and the Earth, right?
Oh, really?
Sorry, hold on. Number one, this is supposed to be the experiment they hold up to prove that. Number two, he's actually trying to establish the mass of the Earth. So what you're just going to do is assert your religious belief at the beginning of this statement, IUP.
We're talking about the difference in gravity between a ball and the Earth.
Well, I asked him to quantify how he could feel the gravity, and he said that all of his weight was caused by gravity, and this is not the same as what Cavendish says.
It is the same.
He says only 150 million.
Hold on, Anthony.
No, he's not saying that though. We went over this yesterday.
Hold on. Where does it say that then? You've just said, yeah, he does say that. Well, let's see then. Take us to it, P.
No, he's saying I misinterpreted it.
Because the force between an object and the Earth is going to be a lot greater than the force between an object and another object that's not nearly the size of the Earth, because the bigger the object, the more mass the object, the more force. Does that make sense?
It's 50 millionth to one, though, according to Cavendish.
Because the Earth is so much bigger than the ball that it's being attracted, the weight that it's being attracted to. Because the Earth is huge.
Yeah, it's still 50 million to one, though.
But it's not. There's no contradiction. So
there is. Because
that's a straw man.
Your friend claimed that all of his body weight was caused by gravity, and I said it was only a 50 millionth to one, and he didn't agree. I presented evidence that showed it was actually 50 million to one, according to one bloke who played with balls in his shed. But not that I agree with this, of course. But he claimed that it was all to do with his weight, and it isn't, is it? It's only a 50 millionth, and it's got it on screen right now before your very eyes. And you said that I misinterpreted it. So I'm asking you, where did I misinterpret it? The 50 million to one.
I just told you it's a 50 million to one compared to the weight of the ball compared to the weight of the Earth. The Earth is bigger than the ball weight.
Yes, 50 million.
Hold on.
So obviously there's going to be a greater attractive force between you and the Earth because the Earth is so much bigger than the weight.
Still 50 million to one, P.
The weight's going to be really small because it's so much smaller than the weight. But that's not a contradiction to anything I said. So you created a straw man argument. You invented a contradiction.
No.
Your misinterpretation of this.
Stop, Pete. The guy said all of it was to do with gravity, and you agreed with him. And I said, no, it's a 50 millionth to one. So when I produce evidence that supports my position, and you guys just go, I'm going to call you guys intellectually dishonest.
This is just a straw man logical fallacy, though. There's no contradiction. It's just based on your misinterpretation of this paragraph.
So how is it a straw man? You know what a straw man is?
It's not my fault. You have no reading comprehension ability. Like that's not.
How is it? Explain how it's a straw man.
Because you misinterpreted what's written here and created an argument based off your misinterpretation.
Hold on 1 second.
This is an argument that I didn't even make this argument.
Hold on. God. Hello, Nathan. How you doing? Too late. Somebody snipe him out.
Hey, can I just ask you to clarify what you see there? Because I'm new to this. I know what I've read, and I know what Anthony's saying. And can you just clarify your point in terms of what you think that means?
What the hell are you talking about?
In terms, well, it's obviously critiquing the experiment. You can see there. Where do you think the critique is applying? And that seems to be what you're disagreeing with Anthony.
Are you listening to this? Are you listening to the conversation I'm having with Riley? Because I have no. What are you talking about? I don't even understand what you're. What are you?
That's okay. I won't try again if it's beyond.
This is called trolling. You're not answering the question, P. And you understand the question, but
What is the question? The guy doesn't make any sense. He's like a babbling lunatic on the sidewalk, some homeless crackhead.
Okay, this is where you
Well
go.
beyond your level, not a problem.
And here you go.
I know not to waste my time again. It would seem sensible, Anthony, that if you read it, it's discussing the difference between the forces that the equipment will be subject to, and that differential is, as you say, and as Pete tries to point out his runoff, it is relative to the weight of the Earth, but that's the force that's being applied in the downward direction according to this. And what it's saying is there's absolutely no way, if you've got a force of that size being applied in a downward direction, that you're going to be able to have equipment sensitive enough to pick up the force of 150 millionth.
Yeah, well, the point the guy was making was that when I asked him how much of his own body weight was caused by gravity compared to just the density, because I'm asking a specific question for a very specific reason, and this is the reason. I want to see what he thinks the gravitational force is as a proportion. Does he know what it is? Is it 50-50? Is it 10%, 1%? Is it a fraction of a percent? Where does he stand on it? What does he think is gravity compared to what is just density? And when he said all of it, I was like, hey, it's payday. Because he's completely and utterly wrong. That's not what Cavendish says. Now, of course, that's not my position. I don't believe that gravity exists. But according to their science, this is what the claim of science is. Gravitational field or gravitational force represents a 50 millionth of the object's mass or the object's weight. I don't think they'd invented the deception known as mass at that point, and the difference between mass and weight being little g. But anyway, nonetheless, my point is that it was the counter evidence to this guy's assertion that all of your body weight was caused by gravity.
I was just hoping to have a slightly civil conversation with P, but it was obviously beyond him today.
It's beyond him most days. But it's funny though, when he's on a panel that's full of ballers, he'll happily sit there and ridicule all day. So, where do we go from here, guys? If you guys can't prove your gravity, you can't have an atmosphere sticking to the ball of an Earth without it being sucked off into space, can you? So where are we going to go from here? What are you going to do to prove this thing that's pulling the atmosphere down? Because I'm going to say there's an equal and opposite force pulling it all up. And only if the mass gets greater than a certain point, then it'll defy that and it won't get pulled up anymore. How can you guys prove me wrong any more than I can prove you right?
Merry Christmas! Ho ho ho!
Hi, Alan. I've got an apology to make. It was not done in any malice. It was just there's needs must and
I've
humour.
been checking my list, Adam. I've been checking my list, and you're off it.
I'm sorry, pal. It was just to see what was going off with Arwin, and I figured you'd be a good enough sport.
Don't expect anything on the 25th. That's all I can say to you.
As long as it's only from you, I'll be all right with that.
Hey Daniel, how you doing?
Hey Nathan, how's it going?
Shed load of background noise, but good to have you anyway. Another shout out to SX0, says Pete is bipolar. Very
Definitely
nice.
something.
Hi Mike, how you doing?
Hi, hello.
Good to have you.
Hello.
Hi there.
Alan B, I'd much rather have you on this panel than that other guy. I'll take
Yeah,
you
I would,
any
and I
day,
think Alan B's a moron.
I'll take
What's up
Alan
with
B
you? What's
any
up with you,
day over
Tony?
that dude.
I can't remember. Why did I block you the other day? I can't remember. Oh, you called me dishonest, didn't you? You said that I lie all the time. That was why. So
Yeah.
your claim that I'm a liar is what's the word, beheads you right now.
Oh, right, okay. Pretty factual, though.
Really? Any evidence of that assertion?
I can see Ireland from here.
But do you remember the original video was a question?
where's-
There was a
where's it
question
say
mark.
that?
You're a writer, aren't you? You understand what a question mark does. Should I present it to you? Would you like to see what it actually said?
No, it's all right, Tony. I'm just joking. I know you can't take a joke.
Just feel a little bit triggered these days with the amount of people walking around spreading disinformation.
Well,
Tony, can I ask you a question?
You certainly can, sir. What can I do for you?
Okay, so I was listening to a hangout the other day. I think it might have been Ranty's or Nathan's. And basically, Ranty was trying to compare, is it Conspiracy Cats's St. Helens pictures and his defense of those pictures with, I don't know if you remember this, he was trying to compare that with a lawyer defending a paedophile when the paedophile's told the lawyer that he's guilty.
Yeah, and I picked him up on it.
Yeah, and you basically you didn't let him get anywhere with that. You said you knocked him down straight away because obviously, I'm not having a go at Ranty because I've been in that position as well, talking to someone who's got a degree in law or like trained to be a barrister and not understanding how the law works. So you obviously, you didn't entertain him for a second. You said that's not how it works. Simple as that. So my question to you is, can you empathize with someone with a physics degree or PhD having to listen to people in the flat earth community who haven't got that sort of education?
Oh, hang on a minute. That's a generalized statement.
No, I'm just asking if you can empathize. Can you empathize with that?
Let him finish.
No, I can't empathize with your claim. I mean,
I want to hear his claim first. Hold on, I didn't hear it. Can you just finish your statement, Mike?
Okay, let me start again. So can you empathize, because the position you were in, you were talking to someone, a man on the street just like me, who doesn't know anything about law and thought he knew. So can you empathize with someone with a education in whether it be physics or chemistry or whatever it is, talking to someone who hasn't got that, and that person think they know, some of the basics, and that's, that comment by Ranty was a basic part of law. You'd know that within the first 2 months of a law degree?
Not really. No, you find that out in practice. Really, you don't. You find that out a lot later.
Ranty.
But it is a basic.
No, I wouldn't say so.
Oh,
it's an ethical question that gets dealt with the code of conduct. When you learn about professional conduct, that's much later down the line when you're into practicing it.
Okay, so I don't know this. I haven't got a law degree, so I don't know any of this. Okay, fair enough. So I'm just asking, can you empathize someone with a physics degree in the same position, talking to someone who doesn't know that much about physics?
So my generalization, you're trying to actually turn around and say that you should then use a scientist to evaluate science, and that somebody that doesn't have a PhD or a qualification in science shouldn't go near science and address that. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's not my first of all, I did say I was in the same position as you, so I'm not having a go at you. That's something which a man on the street like me who hasn't got a law degree would say as well, and I have said that.
What do you mean would say? It was a generalization about.
Yeah, and I'm saying I would say the same thing
to another. Had nothing to do with the point. Had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Okay.
What's your question, sir?
I was going to say, can you just summarise your question again? Do you have empathy for a PhD who feels that
do you have
right?
empathy with someone? Okay. Do you have some empathy with someone who's got an education in physics, just like you've got education in law?
To be honest with you, there are certain things that I would expect that somebody with an education in physics would understand. And it appears, based on my interpretation of the people that are in this discussion that do have education in physics, Rumpus being one of them, that don't understand the scientific method prevails over the non-scientific method. And if you can't apply the scientific method to prove a cause and effect relationship by independently manipulating the thing that you believe is causing the phenomena that you're observing, then that is a lot stronger than the thing that you don't do within the scientific method, which is you just merely observe something and interpret what you're looking at. So if these people that I'm talking to in the discussion have this education and don't understand the basics of the scientific method, then I have a problem with that. So to answer your question, to be honest with you, it cheeses me off that these people are in the discussion with intelligence but don't understand the basics that we learn in high school. Is there anything else I can do for you?
However, Tony,
hold on. Let's just get some order. I don't think Mike's trying to antagonise you, Anthony. He's just asking a question.
No, I know he's not, but it pisses me off when people that are trained in physics, like Rumpus, deny things that are literally and utterly against what they're preaching at that moment, because they want to win the point or make the presentation sound more credible or whatever. The reality is Rumpus preaches nonsense that's not true. And it pisses me off. So to answer the question, I don't have any... Shut up! I don't have any empathy whatsoever for a physicist or a self-claimed physicist that doesn't understand the scientific method.
Well, you preach a scientific method that scientists don't use.
Oh, really? So what evidence have you got that we preach a method that scientists don't use, Alan?
It's been written by a fundamentalist Christian.
That's total bollocks.
But it's cited and supported by evidence from PhD level
What a
physicists.
load of crap. Sorry, you think that this method is John's
science
method?
book. Show me a science book.
Don't finish my question. So you're interrupting me already, Alan. It's going to be a very short conversation. So you are asserting that this is John's methodology, not the scientific method.
Yes.
Oh, really? So you think the IV-DV relationship is not the scientific method, it's John's method? You're an idiot.
Show me a science book or science paper with that exact method in it.
No problem. Bear with me one sec. So, what's the issue that you don't like with the scientific method? Is it the independent variable?
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying that's not the scientific method.
So it's
hold
on. Let's just get clarity. So you're saying an independent variable is not part of the scientific method, Alan?
I'm saying John's version.
No, we're asking you specifics. He's not here.
The scientific method that scientists
Let's get it clear. We're going to look up what you claim. Are you claiming that the independent variable, a specific part... I haven't finished, right? You're just going to misrepresent other people's positions and then talk over us. I'm going to kick you out. What are you claiming? Make it clear.
I'm claiming that John's method is not the scientific method that scientists use.
What's John's method? Hold on. Take us through John's method.
Put it up.
No, you're claiming someone who's not here's method. So at the very least, I expect you know it and can dictate precisely what his method is and where it's wrong. Go.
See? You're scared.
Go. Tell me what his method is and tell me where it's wrong. You're talking over me.
Alan.
Tell me what his method is and where it's wrong. Go.
Tony, find a method.
Excuse me, you have asserted that a person who is not here has a method and it is wrong. Now I want you to tell me what that method is and why it is wrong. Go.
You preach it. You preach it.
Sorry, no. I've just made it very clear. We don't use a John method. We use the scientific method, and it has an independent and a dependent variable relationship. So are you denying that or claiming that's John's method, or are you just saying that John's method's wrong? We don't give a shit. We're not using his method, so that's very good. Who cares? We're not using John's method. It seems you don't even know what John's method is, so this is a meaningless point because we're not using his method. Okay, Alan?
Show me somewhere where that's repeated. Is exact.
What's repeated?
Science.
What's repeated? The independent and dependent variable relationship in a hypothesis.
Do you always have an if-then in an hypothesis?
Excuse me, I haven't mentioned if and then. I've mentioned independent and dependent variable, not if and then, IV and DV. So why are you now strawmanning me with this if and then shit?
I'm looking for an example.
Excuse me, you haven't given me an example of John's method that you claim is wrong, and now you're demanding a straw man argument be demolished by me. When did I say the words if or then needed? I didn't. I said independent and now you're talking over me. Last chance, do it again and I kick you out. I said very specifically it has an independent and a dependent variable relationship. That is a scientific prediction, also known as a hypothesis, validated by systematic experimentation. That is the scientific method. That's what we are talking about. Not some method that you strawman us with that some guy says. No.
Show me where it's used in science. Examples, please.
Examples?
All the time.
Show me. Show me.
I'll tell you what I'll do. It's not fair for me to argue it by proxy. I'll see if I can get him in, and then you can have the back and forth with John. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Tony.
No worries.
Do carry on.
So you've done science of some distinction, have you, Alan?
Stop stepping and building. Answer a reasonable question.
No, forget Alan for the minute. We'll put him on ice. Let's go back to Mike's point about
we've got someone on the panel who has. We've got Adam. So I'm just weighing up qualifications to see if we can get some closure on it from someone on the panel. I'm asking Alan what his experience or qualifications are in this area, please, Alan.
Same as yours, Nathan.
So
I
none.
deliver groceries.
So that'd be none. That'd be none then. None. Correct? So you're the same as me. None. No qualifications, Alan. Thank you. That will be all. Adam, can you tell us what your qualifications are? Shut up, Alan. You haven't got anything more to say. You know nothing about this. You've got no qualifications.
God, why are you so...
Shut up!
Bloody...
One more time. Adam, you there?
Yes, sir.
In the scientific method, would you require an independent and dependent variable in a hypothesis?
Yeah, if you want your hypothesis to have scientific validity, yeah, that's kind of the crucial point.
Show me where that's written.
Alan, I don't have to show you anything. I'm being asked my opinion. You've stated yours. If you could, what I would say, mate, is, you know, without it, science is impossible. That is the principle. That is the whole thing. That's what science is. What we have seen, Alan, is, particularly in a lot of fields, is psychology is a great example where we try to pretend we're doing science. And I did A-level psychology as well, so I speak again from a point of knowledge. It's a very different way. It's purported to be science, but it isn't. It's statistical correlation. And that's kind of one of the key differences when you look at the real science subjects like just chemistry. It is a straightforward cause and effect relationship that we're looking to identify.
Right. And it is completely defined chemistry also.
That is science. And the one thing I would say, John seems to take a lot of flack. You said it there, is the...
Hey, Thomas, how you doing?
Murray's method, and it's nonsense. He's quite eloquent.
Hello.
Pointing out the scientific method to people. Now, I can only offer him great kudos and compliment that people align it with him. So respect, John.
That's pretty weird. Have you ever followed any of the quotes that he uses or the websites that he does?
Who cares? The scientific method as
I
described is correct.
No, I care. This is all about evidence. So let's see some evidences where you claim that he's cited something and you don't agree with what you claim he's citing based on the citation.
You seen his famous NASA one that he uses? It's from a kid's site.
Right. So what's wrong with the citation?
It's from.
Hang on a minute. Hang on. Are you really going to do this when Jeremy cited something from the Girl Guides on the Isle of Man stuff?
I'm not concerned with Jeremy.
No, but you're making the same point that we make against Jeremy, right?
No.
Yeah, Jeremy cited the Girl Guides map. We brought it up. We didn't like it.
Oh, so
no,
it's a straw man. Oh, so it's a straw man when we do it. When you do it, it's a really cogent point, is it, Alan?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, Nathan.
Oh, really? That makes you a wanker. Double standards wanker.
So what's wrong with his NASA citation? What specifically is wrong with it?
Let me dig it out, Tony. Let me go on ice.
Yeah, this is what we like. We like to see some evidence.
Guys, I just want to say that Thomas looks like he's presenting something interesting. You know, we could. I'm not being funny, but Alan B offers nothing. I don't know why you even entertain him.
I agree.
We've got a new guy on the panel, and he seems like he knows he's got something to present.
Yeah, come on, let's see Thomas. But I want to come back to Mike because I want closure with Mike.
We'll get back to Thomas hopefully on the next show, but in the meantime, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you, the live audience, for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated the show, then smash the dislike button, but then smash it again. But if you liked it, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!